We got 6 palm storage. 127.
Let's take that in.
I want to take West Hampton kitchen off the agenda.
Yeah, didn't we send them letters already? They're not coming us through. We'll wait for them. We're gonna take 107. So let's do the holdovers and the resolutions to take 107. Okay. Get it back up.
I put it on, yeah.
Right.
And then the microphone for you guys, you have to turn it on.
That's my daughter did too.
Look at it. Streetscape design of the revised federal landscape. So we just added a buffer, that's good.
So 1, 2, 3, and 6, 127.
It's a little lag.
Where's the others? I'll just send them on everywhere. Take the loss, we can't get it. Traffic circle.
That goes delay, right?
Your pile is not large enough. Laundry basket. I did go through them for a while. Stuff in there. Right.
Why does this thing make the looks like
So Megan, how are you?
I am good, Larry. How about you?
I'm good. You have your tree up. I can't afford Christmas.
My oldest daughter, my oldest daughter went for the big money. She said, I don't want anything except Invisalign.
Except for what?
Invisalign. Now, I said, now you do recall that I spent close to $5,000 on your braces when you were a teenager and you stopped wearing your retainer. So now I gotta go dig deep again. But she has made she said that she's going to go to grad school in New Zealand.
Well, that'd be fun.
So I said, all right, well, at least, can't expect me to run over there and take care of her. I will do my best from afar. She's coming home for the first time. God, it's funny, because she was away for 1 semester 2 years ago when she was home.
Griffin got accepted at his first choice. R.I.P.
Rochester Institute. I know it well just because.
And he got a $20,000 scholarship. I don't know.
Tell him to think carefully. My father says that his greatest mistake in life is the one he made when he was going to college. He got accepted to RPI and MIT. He went for RPI and said, I went to Troy instead of Boston. It's a beautiful town, Troy, outside of Albany.
Well, fortunately, Griffin likes snowboarding and skiing.
Well, that's good. Well, our team comes up in Rochester. That's up there. Rochester's not really on the way anywhere. No, not before. Buffalo.
No, this is really big, huh?
There's going to be much ado about nothing when it's all said and done. It's still but even on Rogers, Ron sent out the field. Even on Rogers, Ron sent out things that he didn't even address him.
Are we supposed to be wearing masks?
No, unless you want to. Unless you... Bring on the Omicron. Bring on.
What are you up to? I caught you sleeping, didn't I?
No,
Yeah, he's awake. He's awake.
I wasn't sleeping. I was looking at this, but I did those like 2 meetings ago, and I took court by one woman that I know here from Charlotte. Yeah, she said, I saw you throw those over. I said, I know, and I was looking at my answer.
Is Heather
I
gone?
didn't realize, I knew it was like 5 or 10 seconds. Because I was sitting back.
Yes, well, Ron did too.
And I just like,
55 and 59.
Oh, what?
Or 27. Actually, she wanted to go on 27th or to the 13th? 13th.
And that's what number?
7. Does she have another one on or just that?
Just that.
Just that?
you know, Kyle said something
Where is Kyle? Is he joining us or is he going to?
sense that said if we didn't want 53 minutes based on. So how did that get
And
down?
Anthony, hopefully, is.
I don't see him.
I think it's appropriate to remember.
It's, but is that sufficient?
It doesn't, at this point, I think the real juice is going to lie with the trustees on the special exception. Now, if we're telling our opinion to the trustees against this, then they'll have to address it. And they can do that with the neighbors. Look, you got all the trees.
No, I said it, and this really should start with something with the traffic. The way to solve the problem is maybe literally halfway down Hazelwood and Rogers, is to basically block the road. You know, you can get through an emergency vehicle, but it's not through traffic.
They're not going to block roads.
You know what I'm talking about? Like you can put a swing way, you can get through an emergency equipment.
It's not going to happen.
It's not gonna happen, right? That literally solves all the issues about traffic.
I think also not building 52 units can resolve some of those issues.
That too, but we still have the cut-through problem in the summertime. Listen, I've done it.
I'll give you.
So that's, we got a lot of people in tonight. So who makes the decision on yeah,
The number of units?
yeah.
Trustees.
So,
It's a special exception permit.
so they're gonna decide.
We can make recommendations. See, the units they're proposing, as I understand it, not these are what would be permitted if that's what it was zoned for. So that's how they planned it. But it's not zoned for that, it's a special exception, so they're not entitled to it as a matter of right.
So the residents have to get in touch with their trustee.
That's what the trustees say. We don't have to, we don't get to decide, because most of the time that ship is sailed.
Ready to roll?
Yeah, I just was hoping for, it's that Kyle and Anthony, but no such luck. All right, you ready, boss? I'm ready. All right. Okay, good afternoon, everybody. It's nice to see so many familiar and not so familiar faces. Usually we're a little bit more lonely than this. But we'd like to thank you all for joining us. For those doing the best I can, sorry. I would like to wish everybody a belated Happy Hanukkah and wish everybody a Happy New Year and a Merry Christmas coming up as applicable. Since we will not have any additional board meetings this year, our next board meeting will be on January 13 of 2022. As you can see, we have a full house. I suspect that most of you are here on one application. I would ask that there be no conversations back and forth in the room. If you have to have a conversation, take it outside. Even though it may not be the application yet you're interested in, we need to hear what's going on. So just ask that you respect that process. Going forward, I believe we have a couple of resolutions, Mr. Newmar.
We have 3 decisions. Ivy on Main Incorporated, 103 Main Street. It's a waiver of site plan. Is anybody here for the applicant? I need a motion to accept the resolution as written.
I make a motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Roger Ross, 104 Point Road. Is a fill application, basically. Anybody here for the applicant? Will you waive the reading of the resolution? I need a motion to waive the reading and accept the resolution as written.
I make a motion
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
10 RR Corporation, 10 Old Riverhead Road. Application to modify the site plan. Anybody here for the applicant? I need a motion to accept the application as written.
I make a motion?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
We have a number of holdovers. Items 1, 2, 3,
No, 6.
1, 2, and 3 are being held over until 1/27. Item number 7 is,
Can I get a motion for that, please?
need a motion?
Isn't number 6 going?
Okay, yeah.
Right.
Number 6 also, I'm adding 1, 2, 3, and 6. I need a motion.
I make a motion?
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Application number 7, I need a motion to hold over to 113.
I make a motion?
Second.
All in favor?
That's all the
Just, make a motion on number 9.
And on number 9,
On number 9 is the, Baby Moon.
W,
Well, it's
WHB
WHB Kitchen.
Kitchen.
It's Baby Moon Restaurant.
No, it's Flora.
That's Flora. I'm sorry, my mistake. This application's been on our agenda for quite a while. We've been waiting for quite a while for the applicant to submit a proper application to accomplish what he wants to accomplish, and we've had no correspondence, so I'm
I
gonna,
make a motion, we remove the applicant from the agenda.
Second?
all in favor? Aye. Okay. Gonna go slightly out of order here, and just for everybody's benefit, and information, we're probably gonna end up doing the Rogers Associates application last, just because that's probably gonna take up the vast bulk of our evening, so, just be aware of that. What? What do you want?
Number 5, you want that one over or no?
Yes, we did.
I didn't have that as count. I had 1, 2, 3, and 6.
Oh, I
Number
don't have
5 also.
Oh, I didn't have 5.
In, yeah.
I had submitted plans back in October. The final architectural rendering and that.
Like a sheet or two?
I'll be honest, I haven't.
So then I will join your application to adjourn this to January 13th.
January 13th on that one. I make a motion, we hold over the applicant to January 13th instead of the
Yeah, it was just one sheet, right?
No,
Or
it
2?
was 3 or 4 pages. But I'll get it to you.
Okay, yeah. I thought I only got a sheet or 2.
I'll send
Check
it
with me
again.
tomorrow.
Yeah.
All right, second?
All in favor? Aye. Mr. Hume, you wanted to go with 107 Old Riverhead Road first, if I recall correctly? Well, you want, no, just, you wanted to, you asked to take 107 out of turn, right? Right? Okay, so why don't we,
What number is that?
that one is
7-Eleven.
11? Okay.
number 11, 711.
I think there's the plug on the side thing. The dongle or something that's still in. You got it? No, this. This thing here, or this thing?
he sneak in?
Hey, snuck in.
Yeah, I'm talking to you over there.
Snuck in.
Where'd you sneak in?
I've been here the whole time.
Invisible man?
You see it on the finder, Jim?
Yeah, I have it up on the screen.
Okay. Good job.
You take a stab at this?
All right, we finally got it working.
Three different images. Yeah. So, first of all, for the applicant, James N. Hume, 333, the road at the beach, and with me is, right now, the principal and the owner of the property. And, when we were here last, we spoke about,
Is that on?
so for the applicant, James N. Hume, 323 Mill Road, West Hampton Beach. And the Owen Cosmo, the principal, is the engineer. Now, here is our,
Mic isn't on.
how about now? No? Anything?
If it's green on top, it's on, but I don't know why it's not working. But you guys, we could just tell everybody, Dave, in the audience, no conversations at all.
Yeah.
It's gonna be a long night. Try that. You wanna try this one, Jim?
The battery's dead.
Try this one. Wait, let me. No, it's this mic. You guys can't keep shouting from the audience, all right? We'll get it worked out.
Hello.
There you go.
Yeah.
There we go. So, for the applicant, James N. Hume, 323 Mill Road, West Hampton Beach, New York, and with me is Erwin Krasnow, who's principal in the applicant here. And as you know, we're looking to, we've been here a number of times, we're looking to develop the vacant land at 43 Main Street with a gas station and a 7-Eleven. 107, I'm sorry. That's right. Okay. Yes, so, but we are in fact, wherever it is located on Riverhead Road, we are in fact seeking to develop it with a gas station and a 7-Eleven. And this, we had spoken last time about us providing some renderings as to what the development for the property that we preferred would look like. And so that's what we did. I believe each of you hopefully got a packet with this in it before. This is a street view with the canopy and the pumps in front and the building itself in the back. And another view coming down south on Riverhead Road. And then just an aerial view showing how this, what is proposed would fit in to the community at large. What we have shown is the new 7-Eleven, the 2.0 version, which is a slightly larger store and has some different and we think better features. It also, from the existing 7-Elevens, and it's also obviously a little more modern in design, but we think that this would be a nice addition and play very nicely in that part of the world. As we talked about before, directly behind this property is the storage facility. Directly to the north is the railroad tracks. Directly across the street is the, well, we can see that in this view. The railroad tracks directly across the street is the town highway department building, and then further is the cement plant. And then just below us is the VFW. So I think that this would be a nice addition, a nice improvement to the architecture that's there. We have talked in the past about a different orientation of this project, which we don't find as favorable for the reasons that we discussed last time. And I would just suggest that the Wappinger Falls project that was being talked about, and I don't think it's been built yet. I found it on Google Earth, and I found the intersection, and it doesn't seem to have been built yet. But it's an application in a very much of a different setting. It's a highway business zone right in the middle of a residential area. as opposed to a business zone, which is what we're building into. So I don't think that, and it fronts on two busy streets, so the gas pumps, at least in one direction, are in fact in front as opposed to behind. And we discussed last time there were a number of reasons as to why we didn't think putting the pumps behind the building was a good idea, from safety, visibility, et cetera, et cetera. And so that's really what we wanted to present tonight. We're kind of at a point where,
Folks, if you can't not talk, please leave. We need to have it perfectly quiet.
this is what we would like to go forward with, and we wanted to present this and get some feedback.
Well, Mr. Newman, I think when we asked for the streetscape at the last meeting, it was with the idea of assessing the site plan in terms of your preferred layout versus the one proposed or suggested by the village planner. So we had asked for a streetscape showing, I think we had already kind of indicated to you that this was not the design of the building and certainly not a canopy, that we would look favorably upon.
Well, that's not the impression that we were left with as being a universal feeling of the board.
Well, I think the feeling of the board was, at least tentatively, was that we were not averse to having the pumps on the street as opposed to behind the building.
Right.
But in terms of the design of the building, the color scheme, and the look, I mean, I think we had pretty much had that conversation, and you had submitted alternate renderings with a more traditional look in keeping with the village. So I think what we were expecting was a layout to assess your preferred site plan, not necessarily your preferred design. And we were asking for a streetscape to say, okay, what would our preferred design look like with your site plan to determine whether that was a layout that we would go with. And that's not what we got. We got your design, your canopy, your layout, which is not what we asked for. Unless I'm wrong,
Just based on the conversations that we've had with the board over time, I think there was some support for this design. And my understanding of what was asked was to take the design of our preference and show it with the pumps in front, and that's what we've done.
That's not the way we left the last meeting. And you also got a memo from the village planner, and this
Yes.
view that you've given us, and this is new, I mean, you sent this in quite a while ago.
Just before Thanksgiving, I think, but
So I
I
mean,
guess
we've
that's
all had
quite
a
a while.
chance to look at this.
Right.
And if I'm not mistaken, you've actually had a conversation where this particular topic of this isn't exactly what we expected was brought to your attention.
We had a meeting with the planner, yes, and he expressed his opinion, and we expressed our opinion.
Okay.
And this is what we came back with. I mean,
Well, I don't personally think that this plan that you've rendered here enhances the traditional value of our village. I don't think this lives with the spirit of that. I think this is a box.
we respectfully
You showed us
disagree.
the same box.
Right. Well, I think that the box, as we have shown in other plans, does have more detail than that. I think that what you term the more traditional plan that we did show, certainly not our plan of preference, is a smaller store and pretty generic in my mind, where this adds a little bit of color to a pretty drab section of the village. And I think, with all due respect, I think this would give a favorable impression and would be aesthetically pleasing as required by the master plan. So that's why we presented what we presented. There's kind of a threshold question, though. I mean, I don't know how much discussion, how far down the road we can go with the design, but the threshold question really was the pumps in front and the building in back.
but that was going to be based upon an appearance of the building and the canopy that was more in keeping with the design standards as outlined by the village planner. Now, maybe,
All right, well, there aren't any-
we may not necessarily agree with the planner, or we may, on the layout.
Right.
But certainly, I don't think there's ever been any disagreement amongst anybody that this was not going to happen. I don't know anybody on the board, except in general terms, said, all right, it might not be bad in Iceland, but in West Hampton Beach, this is not what we're looking for.
Well, with all due respect, I think I heard at least 2 board members express an opinion that they like this. So I think that goes contrary to what you're saying. Now, I don't want to put words in anybody's mouths as to who may or may not have said that, but,
I'm not going to sit silent. I'm one of the members that said that I liked it. So in opposition to, the other members, I do like the pumps in the front. I think, and maybe I'm wrong, but I think the general consensus is that the positioning works. And I don't know if I'm speaking out of turn this time. The position of the pumps in the building, the issue is the presentation of the building. And I'll tell you, personally, I like it. But that's my personal opinion. May not be the professional opinion, but
no, I think your opinion carries some weight, or at least 20% of the weight on the people that we're presenting to.
I mean,
so.
there's no other comments coming to the table, and I did tell you that I liked it originally.
Mm-hmm.
And it may not be the popular opinion, but I think it adds a little, for lack of a better word, a little pizzazz coming into the village.
Well, let's take it down the line then, Mike. What do you think?
I said it wasn't bad. I mean, looking at it with the storage place behind it, that's pretty contemporary. And, I could go either way on it. I do like the board and batten look better, this one. I do like the pumps up front. I think that's a safety issue. But that's where I'm at on that.
I don't have a problem with the design as they've shown it here. Don't have a problem with the color. The fact that it's, if we want to call it a modern front facade, it's what it is. We have other modern buildings within the village, and the pumps up front, to me, that's your standard. You drive by a gas station, you want to see if it's full. You don't want to drive around the back to find out that it's crowded, and you don't want to waste your time there getting gas because there's too many cars. The board and batten design, the one of the copies we have, I think it's an okay design, but it's like, to me, it looks almost like any other 7-Eleven store. Not, even though it's not the same as the other 2 we have here in the village, I don't think it adds much at all. I think the canopy sticking out in front, the height that it is and stuff, it somewhat obscures the front facade of the 7-Eleven store. And so I think that sort of reduces some of, if people have a negative opinion of the appearance of the front facade, I think it will somewhat reduce that. And I applaud that you're able to get a larger store. We started out with a much larger one that had glazing going well around on the south side. And I thought it made a much more inviting interior as you could see into. And I'm glad that we're able to, even though that was pared down, that we have an option that still has a bit larger store.
Mm-hmm.
So that's all I've got on it.
Mr. Newberry?
I didn't like this design from the very beginning, so I don't really think I have much to add. You know that. You know what my opinion is.
I do.
I did
Appreciate that.
expect to see this
Okay.
in a streetscape rendering. That's really all I have to say about it. I think it's a box. It may be a box with some facade on it, but it's a box.
The other is a box too, I would suggest to you, but.
Perhaps I was trying to thread the needle. I'm okay with the pumps in the front, but I would prefer it to be
Okay,
a
well,
more
we've got past one issue then,
traditional
I think.
design. So I think you, if I'm just doing rough math, I think you got a majority of the board, a healthy majority of the board, okay with the pumps up front.
Okay.
On
I would-
my count, you've got 2 people that are okay with the design, 2 who aren't, and 1 who could go either way.
But I don't, we don't have a
So-
streetscape, with
You mean something like
this on it.
That's what I was,
And
that's
this
what I
is
was
what we
looking for.
originally wanted.
Okay, well,
No,
All right,
it's-
well, I completely missed that thought. And I
It would be
apologize
nice
for
to
that.
have both of them, and we can look at it, and, because this has a different, also, canopy.
Right.
This is a whole.
And I would
different canopy.
suggest that even in the design that we proposed here, the architecture of the canopy is probably a little more flexible than the architecture of the store.
Yeah, and you got the board and batten look, it blends in a little more.
But you don't get the bigger store with that
You
other
don't get the
design.
bigger store with
No,
this.
they won't allow us to do that.
Well, then-
And I'm not trying to draw a line in the sand, I'm just saying that
is
there's
what it is.
pluses and minuses to both.
Well, I mean, I personally, like Mike said, I would like to see the alternate streetscape just to get an idea of what we're talking about. I was also hoping that maybe there would be some more beefed up landscaping along the street and the driveway to kind of, break it up a little bit more, other than those couple of trees. But there may be reasons for that also, so, I mean,
Well,
I think
because of-
before this board's gonna be able to make any determination, we're gonna need to see that
All right.
alternate,
All right, so we're going to have to come back with an alternate. Yeah,
larger store and the smaller store.
Right.
Do both of them need a variance?
yes.
What's the magnitude of the variance between?
I think that we're permitted a 3,000 square foot building, and I think this store is almost 5,000 square feet. And the other one is, yeah, but what size is the other store? Yeah, so, right.
So it'd be a lesser variance required for the
Well,
alternate store.
I've had many discussions with the zoning board about it's either a variance or it isn't, and it's not a matter of degree. But we'll, obviously we have to cross that bridge one way or the other with them, but we can't really, really can't get there till we get a little bit further down the road with you guys.
I do think we have accomplished one thing this evening.
Yes, just one other point on that issue is that there is now in the village code a definition of a grocery store in contrast to a convenience store. Convenience store, neither is really defined in the code, but a grocery store can be up to 5,000 square feet in this zone. So this is really an argument, I think, a discussion for the zoning board, but it may make if you're thinking the variance is going to be hard, it might not be as hard as you think because of that. So, but that's a discussion for another day.
13th or 27th?
13th.
Sorry, so I think,
Sure. No, I think we're going to do that by showing that.
Okay, just wanted to ask your opinion, how you want that.
Yeah. That would be fine. The 13th would be great.
so I think so we did accomplish one thing, we've generally agreed
Yes.
that the pumps can go up front, but we want to see that alternative landscape.
Okay. The
Streetscape,
alternative building.
yes.
And significantly
streetscape.
more landscape.
Well,
Yeah.
at least something.
But trees are always
Trees are nice.
available.
Well,
You can't talk
Well,
from back
can't
there.
talk.
Erwin, if you want to talk, you got to talk from here. What he's saying is that
Okay, well,
what he's
let's-
saying is we'll take a look at the landscape also, and we'll come back with some.
We'll cross that
yes.
bridge next.
Yes.
I make a motion, we hold over the application for January 13th.
Second?
All in favor? Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night. Good luck.
Hold on a second, folks.
Jim, what do you want to do about 7 Beach Lane?
Yeah, because you're actually,
Sorry, 7 Beach Lane, we're in front of the zoning board. We have one or two more issues to deal with there.
27?
20, yeah, no, we'll come back here the 13th, because we're going to be on next week with the zoning board, so
Oh,
we should
okay.
have a better read on where that's headed.
Once who've come for the application.
Is anybody here on that application?
Grassmere?
Okay, do you want to be heard?
Is anybody here on the 7-Eleven application with comments?
I'm sorry, I should have asked that.
Yeah.
My mistake.
Can we just go over after this?
You want to go back to Rogers and?
You gotta get people out of here,
I know, honestly, half the room is wide.
too.
All right.
Yeah,
So, all right.
Getting
no
that done.
seats.
All right. That
You
makes,
can't keep bouncing around.
yeah, okay.
Was it when you wrote?
Oh, they have it.
Guy and Cindy Davis, 1 Beach Lane. We're here about their application on 7 Beach Lane.
Yes.
And we submitted our notes and concerns to you in reference to taking that 5,000 square foot non-conforming boarding house and taking a non-conforming residence and taking that square footage and making a 10,000 square foot hotel. We have concerns about the size. We have concerns about opening a restaurant and bar in there. We have some concerns about the parking. There's approximately 16 rooms that they're proposing to have. There's about 18 spots. We don't see any location or application for where the staff will park, where any cleaning staff, hostess staff, any employees will park. When there's a restaurant, you could potentially have 20 or 30 more people going to the restaurant and the bar. We don't see any contingencies for where they would park, how the traffic pattern would work on that corner of Main Street and Beach Lane. We have some issues about the traffic and the congestion and, you know, how these people are gonna go to this restaurant and go to the bar in a residential neighborhood. So these are some of the concerns that we have. We live on the corner. Traffic is already a little bit of an issue in the summer, as you know, backing up. We don't know if you're considering any type of traffic light or any type of traffic control on that corner. If you have 40 or 50 cars trying to get into this hotel and to the bar and to the restaurant, we think 10,000 square foot, which is basically 50 foot away from our residence, is quite large. A little bit of a concern about fire trucks that can't get around this building. They're putting dumpsters between our bedroom and the inn. The north side, if it goes on fire, obviously will go onto our house. There'll be no way for them to fight that fire. We don't understand how they could take a house or residence and take that square footage and add it to an inn and then call it a hotel, where we don't see any use for, in Hamlet Commercial, for a hotel or a bar or a tavern. This was a boarding house. It was owner occupied. The building in the back was for the staff. We just feel that 10,000 square feet is, for Beach Lane, is a big ask. We think that's a very large structure to be in a residential neighborhood. And we just want the board to consider that, consider the traffic pattern, consider that you might have congestion, you might have issues during the summer. You may have to go back and consider putting a traffic light in to control traffic. We know that as Patchogue Village expanded, their traffic patterns are terrible. They have many issues with traffic and with the patrons going to Patchogue, especially in residential neighborhoods where there's some other bars and restaurants. They have to have security. They have to have a car in every resident's driveway with a little yellow revolving light to keep everybody out of their driveway from turning around and going back around and going back out. They have to have security on the street to keep people from going in on your property and defecating on your property after they've been drinking all night. I mean, it's a real issue in Patchogue. They have to bus people in from the train station, and, you know, I don't think you have the parking for what they're looking to do, and I think it's a big issue. It's not in the middle of town, it's in a residential neighborhood, and I just think the board should consider the size and the use for what's going into the residential area. That's it.
Well, as you heard, the applicant is going to be before the zoning board next week.
Right.
Some of these issues may be more directly being dealt with by them.
Okay.
Some of the issues you raised are really more zoning issues that are the code issues that are just sort of beyond what we do, but certainly raise whatever concerns you have at any meeting.
Right. I
Just
think,
to make sure that you heard, and, you know, by writing it down and including it in the record, you certainly make it, you know, it's in the record, so it's there.
Yes.
This same presentation will go a lot further with the zoning board.
Okay.
They really have the lead on this.
And until the zoning board kind of tips its hand as to what it's gonna do, that's gonna kind of dictate what we do, so we're kind of waiting on them anyways.
Okay. No, I
But
understand.
by all means, please, come on the 13th, we're gonna have another conversation, I'm
okay.
sure, and we'll see.
And we do understand your concerns.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Sweet idea about the stoplight. There's gonna be some bad wrecks at that intersection before
It's a
long.
tough intersection as it is, so that's what we're concerned about. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
If I could just take a minute or two, I don't want you guys to have the wrong impression about this project. Yes, a lot of it's going to be addressed in the zoning board, but this is going to be a high-end hotel, so I'd be really surprised if people are defecating in the neighborhood and that kind of stuff. So that's the first thing I wanted to say.
Thank you, Jen.
Secondly, it's not a brand-new use, it's a pre-existing non-conforming use, and that's the case that we're making to the zoning board, and they will decide upon that. Thirdly, we have informed the zoning board, and I don't know if the Davises were there or not, but the restaurant is for the use of the patrons only. The thing I'm going to correct at the next zoning board meeting is that the bar will also be for the use of the patrons only. So this will not be a destination restaurant for anybody other than the 16 rooms that are being occupied in the hotel. The plan, as far as I understand, the plan provides all the necessary parking for the use that I have just characterized. So from the perspective of the planning board, I just wanted to make sure that you understood those issues. And with that, I will ask for it to be adjourned to the 13th, and I will say good night.
Thank you, Mr. Ewing.
Thank you.
Make the motion.
All in favor? Aye. All right, despite my earlier statement, we're gonna go back in order, and we're going to take Rogers Associates LLC now, number 4. Just in terms of procedure, we're taking comments on the FEIS? No?
Past the FEIS.
We're past it
This is
now?
the site plan.
The site plan, okay, I wasn't sure where we were.
That's it.
Okay.
Before they get
Counsel.
started on this application, the way this is gonna go is the applicant, their engineer, they're gonna make their presentation. This is on Rogers Avenue Associates. They're gonna make their presentation. The board's gonna engage with the applicant first. Everybody who wishes to speak will get an opportunity to do so. In order to speak, you must get up, go to the podium, state your name and your address for the record. You cannot speak from the audience, you cannot speak out of turn. If you do, and the chairman asks you multiple times, you will have to leave. But the way it's gonna go is they're gonna do their application, they're gonna do their presentation, we will go through all the questions, everybody will get a chance to speak, so please do not start shouting, okay?
And along those lines, if you hear something you don't like, or you just do not agree with, that doesn't mean you get to groan or moan or whatever, just, you will have your chance. But everybody have the chance, it'll go much more smoothly.
Yes, we all let you go home.
Counsel?
Do you want to get to that now, or you're gonna do it?
Yeah, I'll do it.
Okay, whenever you're ready. And then just-
I saw the problems Jim had, so I'm going to let him handle that. Good evening, members of the board. My name is Frank Eisler. I'm an attorney at law. I represent the applicant. My offices are at 456 Griffin Avenue in Riverhead. When we were here last meeting, we started to address the site plan itself. As the board knows, the environmental review of this project has been completed. A final impact statement has been adopted, and the board, as lead agency, has made its findings under CEQA with respect to this project. Those issues have now allowed us to proceed to the specifics of the site plan, which we are going to be addressing as we started last meeting, and we will continue today. I'm going to introduce Brian Grogan, our engineer planner, who is going to address some of the suggested revisions to the site plan that we have received from your planner and go over the site plan and any questions you might have or issues you might have to wish to discuss with us at this point.
We will have responsibility to report to the trustees on this next. Is that correct?
Have a responsibility to determine the site plan first.
And once we've determined the site plan, we can
Then it
pass
goes- then it goes
our
back.
recommendation
Correct.
on to the
You'll
trustees.
be doing two things. You'll be doing a site plan decision and a recommendation and report on the special permit back to the trustees.
So, just so everybody's clear, the final say on this project ultimately lies with the Board of Trustees and not this board, because it is a special exception application.
And if I might just add to that, the site plan that we have presented and with the site plan modifications that will be discussed today complies with the requirements of the village zoning, subject to the village board's special permit decision it will make upon the completion of the site plan review by this board. This board's jurisdiction is to examine the site plan as presented and review it like any other site plan, and then the site plan will have to go to the village trustees to really address the issue of number of units would be the primary issue they would have. But this is a compliant with zoning plan, and we're addressing this map and this site plan here tonight. Thank you.
Hey, Frank, can I ask one question? Is the plan that you're presenting today compliant or not compliant with the scenic buffers that were required by the original subdivision?
Well, the initial answer to that is if you look at our plan, just for the benefit of the public, what council was asking is back many years ago when this was an industrial zoned piece of property and an asphalt plant was operating there, a subdivision was approved by this board for an industrial 6-lot subdivision. And it included a requirement that a 50-foot buffer be maintained on that subdivision along Rogers and then up along the west side where there was a buffering to buffer the asphalt plant from adjacent residential use. And then there was a 25-foot buffer that then proceeded along the westerly boundary going north. Our position on that requirement and the buffer requirements of that subdivision application is that they do not apply to this property. And that's an argument that we're not here to make. This is an issue for the village.
The reason I asked, Frank.
But I can answer as a practical matter. When you look at our site plan, which is, by the way, the alternate number 4 that we had adopted as a result of the CEQA findings, and that was the plan we're going with, it complies. The property along where the 50-foot setback is setback 50 feet, the development, and also along the westerly boundary where the 25 feet is located. And Brian can talk to that as well. But the answer is we believe it is compliant with those industrial setbacks, although our position is they don't apply.
So question is, do you think it's compliant?
No, I don't know. It was literally a question. I don't have any opinion either way. But I just want to make everybody clear that the trustees are going to decide whether to relinquish those covenants, because those covenants run to the village. So this board doesn't get to decide that issue. If the trustees relinquish it, then you may be entitled to the lesser buffers. But I wanted just to make clear, for everybody's benefit, which one we're looking at. Are we looking at the one that's compliant with the buffers or not compliant with the buffers?
The plan that we're submitting, and we'll have our expert testify to it, is, we believe, compliant with those setbacks. We did that intentionally so as to avoid that issue. However, I think what we'll present to the village board, and so that this board knows, is that when this property was rezoned to multifamily use, The village's findings that it was making was the need to change the use from industrial to multifamily, rezone the property. Multifamily brings with it its own setback requirements from property lines, which we more than comply with in this plan. And so we submit, and again, it's a legal position, that the property being in single and separate ownership here, the subdivision application that was approved for industrial use has been merged and has no longer any force and effect. And the whole purpose of the rezoning for multifamily, as spelled out in the village records, not something I'm speculating about, was to remove a very adverse industrial use and replace it with multifamily housing consistent with the area, and also to provide affordable housing opportunities, all of which is spelled out in the finding statements that the village made here when doing this rezoning specifically for this property. So all that being said, I'll ask Brian to...
Let me just, all that being said, and I understand your legal arguments, and I understand that things change when the bottom line is, and I guess the question really is, presuming the subdivision buffers are in place and would have been binding, let's assume it for a moment. Does your plan respect those buffers?
I'll turn it over for an answer on the map itself.
Okay. That's right.
Yeah, there's no yes or no's anymore in America.
Let me see if I can find this.
And again, this doesn't reflect the recommendations that you received from the village planner.
No, we just received those on Tuesday of this week. We did not have a chance to update according to those recommendations.
You're going to be addressing.
Yeah, I mean, we still have to have some further discussions with our client on those. But like I said, we just got them and kind of went over them again just recently. So,
Thank you. Kyle, you gonna wanna?
Megan, do you know where this is, where to get to the USB drive from here?
When they're done, just summarize what you're.
Do you have a?
Yeah, just.
Yeah.
We would like to see that explanation.
No. Oh, okay. Yep.
You know how to use it?
Nope. I'm not a Mac guy.
Okay, let's see. Let's see if I can remember.
Sorry.
I don't know how to use it either. Where's the flashlight? It's in here?
It's in there. Oh, there it is. Okay.
And then, want to pick one of these? Are those yours?
No, that's not mine.
This here?
Yep, that's okay. Thank you. Okay. Okay, all right. Brian Grogan, Senior Vice President with PW Grosser Consulting. We're the civil engineers for the project. We've kind of gone through this site plan a handful of times. To touch on the point with respect to the buffer, on the western side, we are compliant with the buffer. It looks like we have a slight, it's hard to see here. With respect to the 50-foot buffer, we know that the sidewalk or the entryway, which Kyle has made some recommendations on, is within that 50-foot. And then we are compliant with the buffers on the western side of that easement. So if those recorded easements were not, we're still in force in effect. On the western boundary, we're more than compliant. But it looks like for the front yard for these buildings, we'd have to slide building 6 backwards slightly to comply with the 50-foot.
So you have general compliance, but not.
It's
And
general,
the
but
eastern side?
the eastern side was modified to accommodate that buffer that was there as well. that was done earlier on. We slid the parking and the drive aisle over. And Kyle's recommendations were to convert the parking as we have here into parallel parking throughout the community. Street parking, which then alters some of the street, the road layout for the northernmost section of the development. It relocates, it kind of relocates some of the patio areas for the community center, adds the ADA on the northern side, slides that alleyway on the further north on the property, and then creates, again, on-street parking on the southern end.
Instead of the parking lot field that we're looking at now.
Correct. It does provide, again, it will have parallel parking on the street frontage. And it did, I think.
Zoom it out so you can see
Yep.
the entire site plan, so you can see the perpendicular parking
Yep.
that you're referencing.
Yep, so we had perpendicular parking on the western side and the eastern side. We land banked some down here on the southern side as well as some on the western side. And again, this parking, as we viewed it, was used more for guest parking, as we have more than sufficient parking as per code. So in an effort to avoid having issues with parking leaving our property, that's what we felt was better suited. Like I said, we just recently received Kyle's marked up plan, so that's still in discussion on our end as to how we would like to.
Well, the parking in the proposed plan would be more like the Timber Ridge subdivision.
Correct.
Subdivision, condominium.
Yes. And then Kyle's comments also modified the walkways down here, which was discussed at the last meeting, to have more of a single walkway coming off of Rogers to more blend with a single-family residence look, as well as I believe Kyle added a significant number of street trees to the landscape design, some of which we'll have to have further discussions with Kyle just over location and placement. You know, we're concerned with where they are on his marked up plans with respect to sidewalks and, you know, the proximity of that to a sidewalk. I don't want to create future hazards and issues at that point, so.
We would much certainly rather a healthier buffer, certainly along Rogers.
Yeah, I don't, Kyle's comments didn't necessarily enhance I'll say that the actual buffer we did speak about last time about the additional landscaping. And we were waiting to kind of receive some of the comments from Kyle, as well as, you know, I know the board did not have a chance to review all of the site plans last time.
Do you have a copy of my plan you could throw up there?
I do. So this is the plan that Kyle provided to us earlier this week. Sure. So you can see he converted the majority of the parking now on the southern side of this road here. We now have parallel parking all along in front of the community center. The ADA parking stalls, Kyle had recommended relocating from the center island to the rear side. Let's see if I can get this back up here. The alleyway on the northern end slid closer to the railroad. And then again, we converted this into more of a single, you know, walkway down towards Rogers Avenue.
The other additional was I created a 5-foot landscape strip between the curb and the sidewalks that allows for the street trees. I kind of grayed out the street trees only because it's hard to see the details of the site plan underneath it. And this distributes the parking where the parking is demanded. They're in front of the units instead of it from a safety point of view. In the previous site plan, you had these perpendicular parking spaces on the sides, and if you had guests, depending on where you're a unit, if you're in a unit that's close to the village green, it's a substantial walk. If you look at where these parking spaces are, they're right in the front of the units. It's definitely more of a traditional neighborhood design with parking on the street and street trees and on the sidewalks. So that was kind of the objective, kind of meets the standards of the special exception standards under 197, I think it's 83.3 or something to that, specifically references utilizing parallel on-street parking under the special exception standards under the code.
But ultimately, the general layout of the buildings remains essentially the same.
I had to tweak it, but yeah.
But the applicant's design was tweaked a little bit, but for the most part, remains essentially the same.
Correct. Yeah, the most, I think, significant tweak is the northern row of units.
Which is the furthest away from.
Correct.
Well, and also, I thought it was a tremendous safety hazard, or you can minimize the safety hazard as it relates to the handicap spaces. We're sitting in the middle of that village green, so a handicap would have to cross a road, whereas the parking demand associated with the need for those handicap is that community center. So that's why that was moved to there, and it also makes a better village green. You don't have perpendicular parking sitting in the middle of the village green.
I mean, at this point, we'd like to hear any other comments the board has before we, work on our side to adapt or change any plans.
Well, obviously, the public's gonna wanna comment. Personally, my initial feel, again, we're dealing with this on a more theoretical level at the moment, from our perspective, is, like Kyle's proposal. I think his tweaks make a lot of sense, in terms of the layout and the functioning of the whole parcel. It's fine as far as I could tell, as long as we end up with a fair amount of buffer vegetation around the edges to make it as not invisible, but as less visible as we
Understood.
get it, then I think from a site plan perspective, I think we're in a good place. I don't know if anybody else wants to chime in at this point. Rocco?
Yes.
You have anything? Or you just thinking about it?
No, I'm looking at Kyle's plan, and I agree with you on the comments that I think it's more consistent with what we're looking for.
Michael?
The crosswalk on Rogers and the curbing there, you have a solid line. Is that a stop sign?
Yes, that was part of the secret process, was for traffic control purposes, to install, in essence, a three-way stop there.
A three-way stop?
Correct.
There was one recommendation was to take out the curb and the sidewalk on that bottom corner. There's no sidewalk to nowhere, right?
It's a sidewalk to nowhere, yeah.
It doesn't need to be there. I didn't see any reason. It was a comment that came out of the public. I think actually the property owner who lived on the corner there.
Yeah, she owns that corner.
I just don't see the need for that, the sidewalk on the north side, and I didn't put it in my comments, I think at a minimum, that sidewalk is taking you to Riverhead Road. The sidewalk's gonna be put in there. I'd put it at least to the, Hazelwood. At least to the Hazelwood, if not all the way to.
They're gonna be going to that 7-Eleven. It's gonna be a big store.
Yeah, it's lucky we got a big one.
But that should slow down the traffic on the Rogers with all these stop signs.
The
one stop sign they put at Hazel, it slowed up a little bit, but I mean, to have all these stop signs.
Again, that was part of the secret process, but that was the intention, was to help slow it down, as well as we needed to have the intersection there, so there's currently no traffic control at all at that corner.
Hey, take that baby at 50, if you really try.
I'd like the design of the layout of the housing and the traffic patterns, including the way the alleys and stuff work. So as long as we have plenty of parking, I think I don't have a problem with it.
I've always had a problem with the density.
No, understood.
Ship has sailed. As far as this board is concerned, we have no input on that. I want to be clear about that. But other than that, I think the revised plan that the village planner has provided addresses all the concerns we had. And if you live to your word and do an adequate job of landscaping the property, maybe over landscaping it, I don't really have much more to add.
Understood.
Mr. Isley, have anything else you want to present before we go to the public?
Not at this moment, thank you.
Okay.
We appreciate
Ron,
your
do
comments.
you have any comments?
I gave them a letter or something last week. I would make a comment when Kyle was talking about that southwest corner, that, yeah, the sidewalk and the ramp come out, but the curb should remain. Because the whole point of that was to tighten that so people wouldn't come around that curb too fast.
Right, it's traffic control.
Yeah.
Okay.
That was part of the secret statement.
Okay. You want me to leave the site plan up?
Yeah, might as well.
Okay.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, whomever wishes to speak, try to do this with a minimal amount of disruption. It would be better if we could line you up somehow. I don't know how many people want to speak, but instead of having people constantly getting up and sitting down, it would be easier if whoever wants to speak, if we can maybe use that wall and the folks there kind of find someplace else to go. But before we go down that road, who wishes to speak at this point?
Do you have a representative? Do you have somebody who's a focal?
Okay. Ma'am, come on up. Give us your name and your address.
Hi. My name is Lisa Sommeraro. I have a house off Hazelwood Avenue at 9 Avon Court. I've had the house for 42 years in my family. I believe that the development of the old asphalt abandoned land into a beautiful new community is very exciting. It will create more housing for the village and incoming residents. Our older community needs it to downsize and remain in the community, and our younger community needs it to stay in the village and have the opportunity for them to have additional and affordable housing. Our merchants and our restaurants will benefit greatly from the occupancy and visitors to this complex. We once had a tiny airport that became home to the Air Force, and now a very large airport. And the vacant land there became home to business industry. Our small library was rebuilt. Our village Main Street now wonderfully revitalized and improved with new restaurants, roads, and buildings. The opportunity for my neighborhood, which was called, I believe, South Side Estates back in the day, the opportunity for my neighborhood to experience the positive building changes and improvements makes me very personally happy. I just wanted to share my view and thank you for being inclusive, because we don't see a lot of changes on our side, north of the highway. For not moving just some of us forward, but for moving all of us forward in West Hampton Beach. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to speak? Come on up, please.
Hi, my name's Jessica McGuire. I wasn't really planning on getting up, but I feel like somebody just needs to speak from a parent's perspective. I like the fact that you added in the three-way stop, and I do think it will slow down the traffic and the speed around that curve, which is absolutely frightening from a parent's point of view. We have a bunch of kids on our block. I live a few houses down. I'm at 63 Rogers. I have 3 boys, all very young. I can imagine how everybody understands raising those kids, trying to keep them under control. and all the other boys that live on my block. Unfortunately, even though you put that stop sign there and you force people to stop, it's a race strip. I watch them every single day. Like, I want to record them. I talk to the police officers. They sit on our street. They can't get them to stop. They see the cars. I can identify a cop at the end of my avenue. I know if somebody's sitting there. I yell at them to slow down. They swerve at me. I mean, I have to yell at my kids and teach them, and I yell at my neighbors' kids and I teach them. I'm a nurse. I work in the emergency room sometimes. I work in the OR all the time. I've taken care of those kids hit by cars. They don't make it. They're fragile. It's absolutely frightening. I agree. I want the place developed. I'm not opposed to that. But all those houses, people are living here year-round now. They're not going back to the city, and I'm fine with that. I'm supportive. I want our village to grow. I want us to thrive. I don't want an ugly lot at the end of our street where people are going to go and drink and throw beer cans in. But to have that many condos in such a small area and the main outlet be Rogers Avenue, they're not going down Rogers Extension, because that Old Riverhead Road builds up, and you guys all know that because you all sit in traffic coming to work. I don't make it to school on time to pick up my kids at 3 o'clock, and that's before rush hour. I can't even get onto Montauk Highway at 5 o'clock to get to the school because the community's growing. I sit in traffic to go to Southampton in over an hour to get to work by 6:30 in the morning. The whole East End is booming right now, and that's great, and it's fantastic for business, but let's not overpopulate it. We all chose to move out here for a reason, because we like the country. I cried when I lived in the city. I'm not a city girl, I'm a country girl. And I want to raise my kids on a safe block, and I don't want one of my neighbor's kids being the kid I have to take to the ER and pray that they survive. I'm telling you, it's going to happen. One of the neighbor's dogs got hit by a car. Do you think that truck slowed down? No. And I'm yelling at them on the side of the street. And they're young, and they're old, and they're rich, and they're not rich. It doesn't matter who they are. They use us as a race strip, and they're cutting down. And maybe it's not on Hazelwood, but it's definitely on Rogers. Sorry.
Well, I'll tell you from just from the layout of the village. I'm on Oak Street, so you don't have to tell me about traffic. Rocco's on Oak Street, same thing. We live with it from 4 in the morning all day long. We get every truck that comes into the village. So, but unfortunately, the way the village is laid out, it's a series of through roads. Sunset's a through road, Mill's a through road. There's very few roads that are really not through roads. And unfortunately, I agree with you. I would love it if this wasn't 52 units. I love it was a lot smaller, a lot fewer people, but unfortunately, we don't get to make that call. I would certainly hope that we'd have more robust traffic enforcement, but village police can't be everywhere either.
No, they can't.
I sympathize. We all do. We understand completely.
Certainly when you make your point to the trustees, your emotion in this was important.
Well, thank you.
Does anybody else wish to be heard at this time?
Mr. Chairman, Planning Board, neighbors. Chris Clapp, 51 Rogers Avenue, one of the parents of one of the other kids that Jessica's yelling at all the time. Little pack of boys cruising up and down the entire block all day long, and a couple of girls, and they're actually on the older end. Our kids are going to be big. They might even be big before this thing's even built, right? But there's a whole bunch of newborns, and the whole neighborhood has turned over. It always was, from what as long as I can remember, that you owned a house on there, I believe, right? It always was kind of the de facto affordable housing of the village, right? Rogers and Hazelwood were that's kind of where people like us get their start, right? And which is great. And so, I just want to echo, I don't think anyone here is objecting to a development. I don't think anyone here objects to affordable housing. I think the only challenge here is to do so safely and to do so that fits in with the current character. I mean, we just saw you beat up the 7-Eleven guy over his elevations. We haven't seen a representation of an elevation here. This property's built to the max, both in height and extent, right? That doesn't fit in with a single-family neighborhood, right? What is that building going to look like on the frontage of Rogers Avenue with a sidewalk in front of it, right? Sidewalks are great when they're needed, right? But this is, you're basically kind of urbanizing a single-family residential neighborhood overnight. And just take that into account when you look at the site plan. What does that elevation look like from the street? They say they're preserving the buffer, but an easement or a conservation buffer is an untouched buffer, right? So their development wouldn't even start until after they shouldn't even disturb anything until after the other side of that buffer. Not just the fact that it's not built on, right? But they're not supposed to disturb anything until the other side of that buffer. So, what does this look like, right? How does that impact the look, character, and feel of the existing residential neighborhood? Please take that into consideration as well.
Where you're heading, I agree with you. There should be some elevations. I think, unfortunately, until we get the front tweaked in terms of the layout.
Some elevations presented.
Was there?
All right, so-
There were renderings in the DEIS, absolutely there was renderings done. The applicants can address that, but it's not to say that
But-
You can't put elevations.
No, there's no, for the public consumption documents do not have elevations of their current site plan. Not that's easily digestible. And it certainly doesn't fit with the character of the existing surrounding community. So, aside from Jessica's comments about, the health and safety of the existing community, we've made those points. We're going to continue to make those points to the village board when it gets there. And just, if you're going to continue making tweaks to the site plan, just think about how it's going to fit in with what's existing already.
Well, as I understand it, and the applicant correct, I think part of the design, or Kyle, it was to have that one front building look as if it's a single family sort of structure and have everything else more hidden. So at least from the roadway, it won't look like a mass complex. I think that's the design goal here. Does anybody else wish to be heard at this time? All right. Mr. Eisler? Where'd you go? There he is. Oh, right.
Ron and Kyle, I'm going to throw something to the table that I mentioned probably like a year and a half ago, and I was told, never going to happen. I think, and this is an optional solution, is to basically make this road not a one-way, but stop it at midpoint where you can't drive through. And I've been told, never going to happen. Rogers and Hazelwood. Basically not drive, it won't be a cut-through anymore. You'll have access through emergency vehicles, but you can't drive through anymore.
That would be way above our
Because
pay grade.
I've been listening to this traffic issue since the beginning, and everybody's worried about traffic. Nobody's really concerned that much about the 52 units, whether it's 52 or not. But it seems that maybe what can't be done maybe should be considered. And the people that live on Hazelwood and Rogers would consider blocking the road midway. Now, maybe that's a bad idea, but I think it's the solution to this traffic issue. It's not a drive-through anymore.
Procedure, you end up with trying to put cul-de-sacs in on both ends so vehicles
Well,
Yeah, we talked about that a while.
I understand, because it becomes a dead end, and how are we gonna spin around? But I mean, it's something to think about,
It's a village board.
Yeah.
but I'm just mentioning it because at this point, that seems to be the big issue, is what are we doing with this traffic? And that's a possible solution, whether it's a bad idea, I'm just gonna throw it to the table.
It's just never gonna happen. It's a
Well,
great idea.
it may never happen, but I think it needs to be put on the table for everybody here to listen to, and if it's possible, all of you people out there can decide whether or not you want to block the road.
Mr. Eisler,
Midway.
You're gonna work on Kyle's tweaks, the engineers and the planners are gonna talk, come back on the 13th or the 27th?
I think if my team over there can listen for 1 second, are we gonna be able to resubmit revised plans before next meeting? So we plan to address all of Kyle's comments, as well as what the board and the public have said, and we'll be ready to, to go forward with the modified plan.
Bear in mind our 10-day rule, the meeting's on the 13th, so we would have to have it by January 3rd. Just keep the holidays in mind in your plan.
I make a motion, we hold over the application for January 13th.
Oh, wait, before we do
hold this
that.
over, because there's a lot of people from Rogers Avenue here, we finally worked the kinks out, just so people don't want to come back. If you can't come back, you can watch the meetings on YouTube live. If they're not live that night, they're posted on the website the next day. So if you don't have anything to say, and you just want to hear what's going on, you don't have to drag yourself out, come to this room and everything, you can do that. You can always put something in writing if you have a question later on, but just so everybody knows, the same thing goes for every application, but just so you guys know, we have worked it out. You can go on the website tomorrow, you'll see this meeting, other meetings, and you can put your comments in writing to the board, okay?
A turnout like this for the trustees would be very appropriate.
Yep.
Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Council.
Thank you. Yeah. We've got one more person who'd like to speak.
One more. Oh, we already closed the.
Please make it quick, we already closed.
Yeah, we already closed the hearing.
I just have 34 Rogers Avenue, and I just want to get it clear on this, shutting the road off.
That's a hypothetical.
That's outside our purview. That's not
That
so.
was just food for thought, hypothetical. I've been told can't be done, and I'm getting a smile from.
It's not about it can't be done. It just can't be done by us.
Right, but I'm just saying that it's an option. If it can be made to fly, that might solve the problem. But it's just a suggestion, right? Whether or not it grows feet and runs is up to all the people in this room.
A motion to
Make a motion to hold the application over until January 13th.
second. All in favor? Aye. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Let's give it a minute to clear out.
Subdivision?
We don't have that yet.
I have no idea.
We have no idea.
No idea.
No idea. What do we have no idea about?
Unit price.
Depends on when they finish.
Well, it
We
depends
had that
on by the
conversation
time,
about Timber Ridge, it didn't.
by the time they get to build it, who knows what they're looking at. And I'm not meaning that we're gonna stall it, by the time it actually gets to the table and they start digging, it could be in 2 years.
All right, Rabbi, number 12, Hampton Synagogue Parish House.
Frank, you can plug in to that. Do you know how to work a Mac?
Not really.
Okay, give me a sec.
Not a Mac person either.
I wasn't, and then put it in, and I have to I'm on that.
Frank, did you get Ron's comments?
I did.
Okay.
We addressed the majority of them, not all of them.
Okay.
The comments that I received from Ron, unfortunately, received after the deadline date. But I do have
some updated drawings that were not formally submitted to you that address Ron's comments. I can put those up. Yes, so that these will be current.
Yeah, can you just go over with the changes since the original?
Yeah, that's, they're not in color unfortunately, but I had a chance to render them, but I can put those up.
One word.
Go ahead. One word.
Fire truck.
Yes, I
Two
know.
words.
I know the whole thing about being able to turn a truck around. Is there a spot?
How do you address the fact that it's going to do to get free space?
100%. You have to be able to turn around. That would have to be instituted.
You can increase the response. Can't do it.
I haven't ever known to say is there a spot that you can actually do a circle that turns around.
If you told me someone
You know, it is if you're going up the road and you've got a circle that you can turn around, and on the circle it says do not enter. So going from both ways, you can't.
You're tenacious.
You wanna maybe move
You know
it,
something?
move it around the mouse, is it on there?
It's a solution to this all we hear about is traffic. It's all we hear.
Have you ever been to Patrick?
Oh, yes, disaster.
There's, in the street. There's your solution.
Anything?
Dead man the shit out of the street.
Well, then, it's how to be a solution for these people. It's like, listen, you don't want the speed. Okay.
That's not us. It's not us.
I just finished with the there's other alternatives. You guys gotta make it happen. This is not an hour. Wow, it's a trick.
Well, like I said, the problem with the layout of the village is every street's a different street. Every street goes somewhere else.
Goes somewhere else.
Yeah. I mean, you can go down Beach Road. A hell of a long way.
Beach Road's good.
Poton. You know Poton? Yeah. All those streets go down a long way and they're nice and straight.
Somewhere in the middle is an alternative that may solve this problem. Whether you slow down the road, you slow it down, because stop signs.
I'm guessing.
And then tomorrow morning, I'm going to go throw some of their other house because they didn't do much. First time in a couple years. It's funny, I got 5 calls today about that. Is it going for this election? Is the foreclosure going for? One from this parish. Every person from this parish.
I'm sure they're all legal.
He said, no, what we do is we go to the bank with you and walk up to the counter, go, hell, well, this whole race, 10 years ago, foreclosed in Queens, took $20,000 in cash. Got clubbed over the head when he was a car by the guy in the building. And guess what? He's fucked, he's trying to get it. Guess what? I ain't walking out and telling
Then you don't go to jail for that.
No. You can run,
Maybe in the village.
you can run over people in a little wash, and nobody even talks about real things. I don't know, Rabbi, maybe you can work some divine inspiration.
Do you guys have the drawings?
Well, we have the current drawings.
Okay, because I can't get this to work.
We're dealing with the November 18th set, right? November 18th?
Ron's comments came in on December 1st.
Right.
They addressed those. I'll talk about
Hey, look, it came back. There you are. There he is, right there.
Let there be light.
I'll bring everybody up to date. What's been going on since the October initial meeting that we had. Since that meeting, we received site plan review comments from Brad and also most significant comment was with the size of the parish house being all together and over 6,000 square feet. What we did was, in the site plans that you have now, show 3 separate buildings connected by a proposed breezeways, and the center building, which we call the parish house proper, is down to 3,900 square feet. We're still over the 3,000 on that, and we're appearing before the zoning board of appeals next Thursday to seek relief in that. Okay, the total square footage of all 3 buildings is round number 5,800 square feet, 5,799. So we're under the 6,000. It's just the parish house portion itself is at 3,959 gross square feet. Okay, so that's the most significant comment that we had. The other comments that we had, Kyle, you made recommendations about angled parking so that nobody can go in and out. We've done that. 45-degree parking works the best. That's what we have. Ron, you made a comment regarding the 16-foot wide curb cut that once you get in opens up to 24. We've changed that to 16-foot all the way till you get to the first space. Unfortunately, you'll see it on the 13th. You'll see it here. The majority of Brad's comments have been addressed, with the exception, Brad, of the accessibility, the ramp for the parish house. We've got that. That's on the drawing. That's not up there. We addressed that as well. Ron, you also had. I'm focusing on you because your comments are the ones that are the most recent. You talked about the buffer on the south end, because we did not. If you look at the site plan that you have, gentlemen, you'll see that there's no 10-foot buffer on the south end. Okay. So Ron pointed out that it should be 10 feet unless we have cross-access. Unfortunately, because of the angled parking and because of the fact that we have a gate 20 feet back, I think you hit it on the head when you said that it's a viewpoint because we'll do parking spaces on both sides, and then we'll end up being in non-compliance.
Right.
So what we've done on the updated scheme, we have 10-foot buffer there. Okay. There still is access, to come in. But we've taken what you've said, Ron, into consideration about walking on the sidewalk as a safety issue. So we're looking at that as well. That buffer is going to be different than the buffer on the west. The west is leaving cypresses. That buffer on the south is going to be a hedge, consistent with the other parcels, what we call Jack's house that we came to. We want to have some consistency there. The only other comments that we haven't addressed, and they're minor, detail on a basketball court surface. I know what we're doing. I don't want to explain it. I'd rather give you the detail. It's a drainable surface. We have it. John Condon is addressing the minor changes we had to the site plan in his storm drainage plan, because it's ever so slight. And I owe you an updated photometric to show you that there's no light trespass beyond the property. There isn't. It's just not shown on the drawing. But we'll get that in time for the meeting of the 13th. The last item, which Bo is going to address, unfortunately he couldn't be here tonight. You mentioned something about a dedication over at the corner. For Rabbi's benefit, would you explain that to him?
Yeah, do I have to go up there?
Yeah.
Basically, if you look at the site plan, the property actually comes to a point out in the street. And the idea of the dedication is something that you may want to get rid of that property that lays outside the sidewalk. Right. Best you can do is write it off for a tax deduction and has some impact.
But we don't pay
You
attention.
have to.
What about us? Can we take it off?
If you give it, you can.
I'll take
Welcome to the Board of Trustees.
I think it eliminates some maintenance
So
issues.
you want us, what, to take a little piece and just do it to the village?
Yes.
You don't have it, it's actually in the street because the property goes into the street.
It may actually save you from
Yeah.
liability, because if somebody trips on that sidewalk.
And you don't have to take care of the sidewalk. So maybe you're done.
Thank you. Thank you.
What else? I think that, that's basically it. We still would love a referral to the ARB if we can get it. You know, I will tell you that, just from a professional point of view, the change to separating the buildings and having these unenclosed breezeway really made the design a lot better. It brought down the scale quite a bit. I wish you could see the elevations, but you do have them. I wish the public could see them, but I think it works much better now with the requirements of the Hampton. So with that.
Do you foresee anything that the ZBA might do affecting the ARB's ability to look at this project?
No, I have to be honest with you, I feel very confident with what we've done as far as ZBA and also as far as ARB, that's just me.
No, I just don't want you to go to ARB and have a conversation with them and then something gets changed up after the fact and
Well,
it's a different plan, so.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah, I'll give you the option, it's up to you.
If we can, I don't know when their next meeting is, I think it's after the 13th anyway.
Right.
Yeah, so.
All right. Why don't we hold you over to the 13th and give you an ARB referral? How's that sound?
That sounds wonderful.
I'll coordinate with Harry tomorrow.
Okay.
I make a motion, we provide the ARB referral
And hold the application.
and hold the application over until January 13th.
Oh, no, wait, before we do that. Anybody here from the public want to speak on the synagogue application? I think they're all here for.
Now you can go.
Thank you. Now you can go.
I make the motion again.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you. Happy to see you. Happy holidays.
I mean, far be it from me to stop you from talking.
You sound like my congregation.
Number 13, Country Point at WHB, 44 and 60 Depot Road. Counselor?
Did I try this again? Or are we down?
Did he take his flash drive out? Do you know how to use a Mac?
No, well, no, it needs
All
to
right.
be logged back into it.
Oh.
I take it you received Mr. Hill's comments?
We received Mr. Hill's comments, Mr. Smith's comments, and Mr. Ham's comments.
And
Get all
have
the
you,
comments you need?
and have you digested them? Little, it's orange on the table.
Like the old days.
No, but what I do is, Mr. McCosker, maybe.
No problem. It's like the old days.
Chairman, members of the board, my name is Vincent Pizzulli, with offices at 200 Robbins Lane in Jericho. I represent the applicant, Beechwood West Hampton LLC, with regard to the final subdivision application before you this evening. Please let the record reflect that the affidavit of mailing and return receipt cards have been delivered to the planning board secretary. For those who may not be aware, Beechwood's preliminary subdivision application was approved by the planning board on October 14, 2021, subject to several conditions, including final subdivision approval and compliance with several specific requirements. The final approval is set forth in Chapter 150 of the Village Code. Some of these requirements include, among other things, Suffolk County Health Department approval, the acceptance of performance bonds, and the payment of a park fee in lieu of a parkland dedication. However, before I address the requirements for final subdivision approval and the engineering and planning comments that have been received to date, I'd like to begin by going back to the beginning. The subject premises was formerly known as the Holistic Tennis Academy, and the street address is 44 and 60 Depot Road. The tax map number is Section 4, Block 1, lots 13.1 and 14.6. The Tennis Academy closed its doors in October, as most of you probably know. The applicant, Beechwood West Hampton, is an affiliated entity of the Beechwood organization with offices at 200 Robbins Lane in Jericho. The subject property is 13.06 acres and is zoned R2 Residence District under the Village Code. The subject property has dual street frontage on Old Riverhead Road and Depot Road. The subject property is surrounded by residential uses to the north, south, and the west, and commercial uses along the easterly side of Old Riverhead Road. Right? Is that something here?
Probably timed out.
The adjacent property to the north is a multifamily development known as the Dunes at West Hampton Beach and vacant land zoned hotel district, which I think is the subject of another application. I don't know, it's still pending. The adjacent property to the south is also a multifamily development known as Patio Villas. The properties along the westerly side of Depot Road are in the unincorporated area of the town of Southampton, and they are developed with single-family homes. The applicant is proposing to subdivide the subject property into 22 fully conforming lots with street access on Depot Road. Each lot will meet or exceed the 20,000 square foot minimum lot area requirement, and no zoning variances are requested or required. During preliminary subdivision review, the applicant prepared 2 alternative subdivision layouts and a comprehensive traffic study for the planning board's review and consideration. After several meetings and careful consideration, the planning board determined that Depot Road would provide the most suitable access to the proposed new homes. The following is a brief chronology of the procedural steps and events leading up to preliminary approval and tonight's hearing. Way back in the beginning, on February 12, 2021, the planning board commenced a coordinated review pursuant to the State Environmental Quality Review Act and declared itself to be lead agency. On June 24, 2021, the planning board determined that the proposed subdivision should have access to Depot Road and that a parkland dedication would not be required, that it would be impractical. On July 22nd, 2021, the planning board adopted a SECRA negative declaration and determined that the proposed subdivision will not have a substantial adverse impact on the environment or the village's road network. By letter dated September 14th, 2021, the Suffolk County Planning Commission advised that it considered the proposed subdivision to be a matter for local determination. On October 14th, 2021, the planning board granted preliminary subdivision approval subject to several conditions, as I mentioned previously. In a written determination dated November 30th of 2021, the Board of Review of the Suffolk County Health Department approved Beechwood's request to redeem 10 Pine Barrens credits to satisfy the Suffolk County Sanitary Code density requirements for groundwater management zone 6. With regard to the final subdivision application, Beechwood has received engineering and planning comments from the building and zoning administrator, the village engineer, and the village superintendent of public works. The comments were set forth in a memo from Mr. Hammond dated November 3rd, and in November 29th emails from Mr. Hill and Mr. Smith. I'd like to turn to those comments now
and obtain the planning board's direction and input on several items, 3 items in particular, in order to satisfactorily address Mr. Hill and Mr. Smith's comments, and then finalize roadway grading and drainage plans. With regard to Mr. Hammond's comments, please note the following. The locations of survey monuments have been added to the plans. All public utilities will be underground, and a confirming note has been added to the drawings. A stormwater pollution prevention plan, also known as SWIP, has been prepared and submitted to Mr. Hammond. A draft appraisal report for purposes of calculating the park fee has been prepared by Patricia Parsons, a licensed appraiser. It will be completed next week, and then it will be delivered to the planning board secretary for the board's review and consideration at the next planning board meeting. The Suffolk County Board of Review, as I mentioned, has approved Beechwood's request to redeem 10 Pine Barrens credits, and subject to the filing of covenants, full health department approval is imminent. Suffolk County Department of Public Works is also reviewing Beechwood's plans for the emergency access driveway on Old Riverhead Road, and has also requested that a sidewalk be installed along the Old Riverhead Road frontage, which is approximately 50 feet on our property, and we've agreed to provide that sidewalk. With regard to the comments from Mr. Hill and Mr. Smith, please note that we are prepared to comply with each and every comment set forth in their emails, and will revise the plan accordingly. However, the planning board may have some thoughts regarding 3 of their comments, and we would like your input direction on those 3. First, both Mr. Hill and Mr. Smith have recommended a 30-foot roadway width instead of 24 feet, and both agreed that concrete curbing is not desired and should be eliminated. Beechwood has no objection to either recommendation, but would like to know if the board agrees, or if it would prefer a road width somewhere in between 24 feet and 30 feet. For example, a 28-foot wide roadway might address Mr. Hill's and Mr. Smith's concerns, and also provide more green space in the right of way, and also more room for drainage if it's needed. Second, street lighting has also been recommended. Beechwood has no objection to providing street lighting. The planning board agrees. The sample cut sheet has been provided to us by Mr. Smith, and if the board sees fit to require street lighting, we will revise the drawings accordingly and use the sample fixtures or a substantially equivalent product. Third, Mr. Hill has asked for information on how the entrance island will be landscaped. Beechwood can provide a plan for your review, and we are open to your suggestions. Finally, Beechwood's engineer has prepared performance bond estimates for all of the public improvements shown on the drawing. However, based upon your direction regarding pavement width, curbing, street lighting, and landscaping, they may need to be revised, so we will finalize those estimates once we have your input and submit them next week along with the park fee appraisal. With me this evening is our site plan engineer, Eric Jeter of Haydock Engineering. He will also be available to answer any questions regarding the drawings. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
With regard to your request for our input, unless I'm speaking out of turn, I think the board would defer to our esteemed superintendent of public works, since he's going to have to deal with this a lot longer than we are. If that works for him, then I mean, unless anybody on the board feels otherwise, I think we're just going to go with what the recommendations are from him.
I have a quick question, and I cover basically everything. During the secret process, there was, and the determination of the location of the road curb cut, there was a finding and presentation by your Chick Voorhees. And I believe at the time, and I'm sure it's still proposed, but there was going to be an active pedestrian Riverhead Road.
And there is, and probably not very visible on the map, but at the location of the emergency access driveway, which is proposed to be concrete grass pavers to be decorative and to blend in, alongside that driveway, there's going to be the sidewalk that you specifically requested. And as luck would have it, it's actually going to connect to a new sidewalk on Old Riverhead Road that the county's requiring.
Yeah.
Good.
Kyle, I have a question. I don't know where the answer, well, who's responsible for the answer. Is there street parking allowed?
On-street parking?
On-street parking in that development?
Unless the village, it's proposed to be dedicated.
Well, because, the question came up, the 24-foot wide roadway.
Yeah, we had a discussion about it, right?
That's why we suggested the wider road, but no curbs. It would have to be wider if we allow curbs, but that isn't the character of West Hampton.
Right.
Curbs. So Matt and I talked it over, we both agreed we didn't need curbs. And if you don't have curbs, you go on a little bit to the grass, and we do around here anyway. We have to make sure that this design gives a little more stability to the shoulders. I mean, we don't want to have grass pavers or anything like that. We want lawn, but we want to make sure that it's stable. You know, eventually somebody's sprinkler is going to be on too long. If they turn to mud, but that'll be their problem.
You know, that's why I asked the question, because, you know, street parking, if it's allowed, you know, maybe 24 feet is a little tight.
It is. We're saying going to 28.
Yeah.
We're to the 28.
To be perfectly clear, we're okay with the 30-foot width recommendation, we just want to get your concurrence with it. It makes sense if you're not gonna have curbs, and then you won't have to worry about obstructions in the roadway, plowing, nothing will be in the way.
I wanted this discussion to occur in front of the board, because ultimately it's the board's decision. Matt and I are in agreement that it should look like the rest of those roads.
Well, just to also be clear, it's ultimately the trustees' decision whether to accept the road dedication. So, you know, part of the process of having Matt look at it, he'll make the recommendation to the trustees. So if it doesn't really meet his specifications, and he doesn't recommend in favor of taking on the responsibility for it, the trustees may not take it. So I think that's why we had this conversation early, really get Matt's input on it.
So we're all pretty much in agreement then that bigger's better.
Well, to a certain extent.
So we'll revise the drawings in accordance with those recommendations. And we'll also revise the performance bond estimates, because there'll be more paving, less curbing. And we'll put that all together for you for with the revised drawings, and we'll get them in as soon as we can.
On the street lighting, there is standards under the code.
I have the actual cut, Matt Smith gave me the detail.
Matt gave me a cut of what we
It looked fine. I mean, we're gonna shop and see if we can get the same thing for a better price, but you know, other than that, they're fine.
I got one question. I think it was answered a long time ago, but I've probably missed it. How do you get into number 9? Is there a driveway that goes through
Yes, lot 9 is the only lot in the subdivision that will have its frontage.
It's on Depot.
Oh, there,
That's the only one.
Yeah.
Nobody else is inside.
It could have been gerrymandered into a flag lot on the interior, but the geometry, it would have ruined the geometry. These are nice shaped lots.
That works fine.
Mine's an outcast.
So I'll step down this time.
Okay. Does anybody from the public wish to be heard on this application at this time? Okay, one at a time, please. Come on up, give your name, your address.
Good evening, Jim Going, 17 Brittany Lane. I know a lot of neighbors have spoken to me, and there seems to be a united consensus that they're all objecting not to the development itself, but to the fact that you're allowing the development, which now has 2 exits out of it, as the existing tennis camp does, to limit it to 1 exit onto Depot Road. Depot Road has endured in the last couple of years a tremendous amount of additional traffic in that the Hampton Jitney, the Hampton Ambassador, the buses go up and down the road all day, and they are pretty big vehicles. They're almost scary looking if you're walking down the street and you see them coming at you. You also have a problem with every time the train pulls in, especially during the summer, on the weekends, where we have a ton of cars, where the traffic is backed up all the way to the railroad station. And whoever regulates that traffic light ought to have a headache at it, because it goes to about 15 seconds, to at some points 2 minutes. but I've seen it on Friday night where it's 15 seconds, so you get about 4 or 5 cars going through there, and then the 6th car tries to beat the light and probably will cause an accident someday. The people who have the tennis camp have both entrances, and most people coming from the city are going to come down Riverhead Road. What's the sense of having them drive all the way down Riverhead Road to hit Montauk Highway, which is a very narrow right-hand turning lane there? And I speak from experience because a town truck tried to run my car off the road there when I was making a right-hand turn. And you couldn't see me. They'll come down Riverhead Road, come around, make the right, and then make the right up the depot. I realize that the board probably figures they don't want more traffic going out onto Riverhead Road because it's a little more dangerous, and I don't disagree with that. But as a solution, I think a compromise should be worked out where if you're going to give the people in this development the right to come up and down Depot Road and shut off Riverhead Road, that you take the end of the street, leave it as a two-way street, which it exists now, but take the end of the street and turn it into a do not enter, where any traffic coming from the train station or the buses or anybody that went up past that cutoff point would have to go down Station Road to exit out of the place. I think it would relieve a lot of the problems, and it's not an ultimate win for anybody, but I think it's a compromise that everyone should consider. I'm not sure, I know one side of the street is owned by the town jurisdiction, and the other side is the village jurisdiction. I'm not really sure who has control of that street. Is it the village? Is it the town? Is it the county? Does the board know?
That's a legal determination.
And to be blunt, this ship is out actually sailed. We evaluated and we received probably the finest traffic study I've ever seen. And the determination's been made that there'll be one way into this community and that the Riverhead Road access will be limited to emergency and build. I want to add that during the building phase of this development, that'll be utilized. But this is really, you're a little late to the dance.
What does the village have to do though to change that road?
I beg your pardon?
What would the village have to do to change the road at its end and turn it into a do not enter area?
You'd have to go talk to the trustees about that. That's not our purview. We can't get involved in that because that's trustees.
As part of the site plan review, wouldn't that be possible?
It's a trustees decision. We can't dictate that as part of trustees. It's without our power. Yeah. I mean, we appreciate, like Mr. Newbow said, we appreciate the residents of Depot Road, their concerns. Unfortunately, this is one of those applications where we were presented with two bad choices and just had to make the choice that we thought was the lesser of the two bad choices. It was not, and...
Just for the record, would you mind elaborating on why you picked made the decision to cut off the one on Riverhead Road?
Because I believe ultimately the number of potential conflicts and the greater disruption overall would occur by traffic going in and out on 31 as opposed to Depot Road. And that's
a little more specific.
Yeah.
We can provide you a copy of the.
You can read the traffic study, or you can read our thing. But ultimately, there are fewer cars going up and down Depot Road as compared to County Road 31. So the interruption is less having it on Depot Road. For few, it is less disruptive for fewer people than it would be on County Road 31. They were bad choices. We didn't like either one, but we had to pick one. There was no way to go around it.
And I want you to know the developer made a very good point when we were having these conversations for either way. He was really willing to work whichever way this board decided. And predicated on that traffic study, we determined that the safest way to access this community would be from Depot Road.
I mean, one thought was to have them open on both ends and then we'd have a cut through. then you'd have probably even more traffic on Depot Road. So, I mean, it was not something that we decided without reason.
And something that you should be more aware of is the fact that by right and with a very little bit of effort, this developer could have overdeveloped the site, just like you see the 52 units over on the other block. And when you look at the already approved or previously approved plan that sits at the corner of Depot Road and Montauk Highway across from the high school, we're talking 50 units in sites that are significantly similar in size to what we're looking at 22 units on. So I think we've really come a long way with this developer kind of meeting our requirements as a village and making the best choice for the village.
Well, by doing that, I mean, Depot Road is going to become a major traffic there with all these developments coming in.
I don't argue that.
Nobody's arguing the point. The best we can do is, I mean, again, this is a development that is permitted. We can't just say no because we don't like it.
But I just disagree with you respectfully about why it's better if you want to do Depot Road than this to go out onto Riverhead.
I respect your right to disagree.
If they go out onto Riverhead Road, they're going to have to stop. They're going to have to be careful where Depot Road, they just zoom right out from down the street.
We appreciate your point.
Like David had said, it was the lesser of two evils. I mean, that's, we didn't like either one, but that's really the bottom line. It was, excuse me, the best choice at the time, and we don't like either. So we didn't say, hey, we're gonna put traffic on Depot Road because, oh, we like it. No, we didn't like it either. But it was, like he said, it was the best of both evils.
Thank you. Who else wishes to be heard at this time? Please.
Hi, my name is Sierra Forney. I live at 51 Depot Road, right across the street from the new application. I would say yes. It's just not a new application under Country Point, which would be different than Beechwood, yes?
They're the same.
It's the same thing.
It's not, no.
Well, what happens, they were originally here before us as a preliminary subdivision review. They're now before us as a final subdivision review, but it's the same proposal.
I will say it's not, though, the same proposal, because the original site plan that some people got on the road showed the entrance and exit on 63, or CR 31, sorry.
That was the original
Right.
proposal. It changed during the preliminary subdivision review process, which was subject to a public meeting.
Right, which, though after the first couple of public meetings, most people assumed that it was still going to be on CR 31. And may I also point out that after you got the results from your traffic study, the traffic study assessment indicated a low trip generation and Old Riverhead Road was least disrupted. They even said that Old Riverhead Road entrance was a level A service, whatever service level for the traffic study, which means that there is no disruptions, that there is no traffic problems going out that way. Is that not correct?
No, it's not.
I don't.
No, level of service is that, and so is the access onto
Depot
Road. There's more accidents on County Road 30. It's safer for somebody to go in and out on a lower speed, lower volume road than it is on a high volume, high speed road. And that's why.
But technically, they're both level A, which would be
Well,
the
they're
same.
both level A, but there's grades in level A and there's accidents you have to consider, the site distance, all sorts of things to consider. And I refer you to their report, which that was the
I
conclusion.
mean, just think of it this way, I'm not trying to pick it apart because it's, again, we've already made this decision, but I think it's, somebody coming out of that development trying to make a left turn to go northbound on County Road 31 is gonna have a very difficult time and is gonna cause more traffic potential backups and more potential accidents with northbound traffic coming off my street, Oak Street, than a relatively low level of vehicles on Depot Road, which is, I don't remember the speed limit, but it's certainly not, yeah.
So speaking to the low level of traffic, did you know that the train comes in 17 times a day, Monday through Friday? Did
You know, there are
that the
two
Hampton
access
Jitney
too,
comes
right?
in?
You have two ways to go to the train station and to Depot Road. There are
Well,
two
there is
access to
Station Road, but
Montauk
no one
Highway.
uses Station Road.
Okay.
Everyone speeds up and down Depot Road. The train comes in 17 times a day, Monday through Friday, and that's the fall schedule. The Jitney comes in 13 to 15 times a day throughout the week. There was also the Hampton luxury liner that came in last summer, multiple times a day. Just last month, there was an accident at Depot Road with someone trying to take a left, speeding through the light because there is no turning light there, which there is at the intersection of County Road 31 and Montauk Highway. All the stops there and all the left-hand turns have a turning light. Depot Road does not. It's also a school crossing zone. Last month, there was a person who tried to take the left and cut off a car and they had an accident. There's kids that live on this road that go up and down the street on their bikes, walking their dogs. People speed up and down that road trying to catch the train, trying to catch the jitney, trying to catch the light. It's insane. I don't understand how the board could have approved, after seeing both of the things, level A, and that it said even in there, the planner, the areas, said that there was no difference in the level of service between both. And you chose to go with a residential,
There was no
small side
difference
street.
in the level of service, but the accident potential was much greater on over that road.
So why not then make a stop sign at that intersection? It would slow down the traffic for the next intersection.
County is not gonna permit a stop sign on County Road.
Not a stop sign, a stop light.
They're not gonna permit that either. You have to, it's not gonna be warrants for a stop light.
But the county road did say it didn't matter if they did the access point, and one of the previous meetings, it said it didn't matter if they did the access point on County Road 31. They had no problem with that.
That's correct. Their initial comments were that.
So, any comments on that from the board?
We made a decision.
Made an educated determination. Again, we knew it wasn't gonna make everybody happy. We have to make a decision. It was the lesser of the two evils. We respect everybody's, listen, if I was on that road, I'm sure I'd be unhappy too. But traffic is not, there's a lot of roads in this village that have problems with traffic. Again, I live on Oak Street. That has a lot of traffic. There are kids who live on that block. I can't do much about it. You know, if somebody puts up a house, like, we can't stop this. And the other possibility was, like Mr. Neubauer said, is the applicant originally came in with multifamily housing. We would have had the same problem, but you might have had 50 units with people. So this is actually a much less aggressive and dense proposal than originally. So not that I'm saying you should count your blessings, but it could have been a lot worse. And we did the best we could with what we had. And sometimes it's one of the few applications where it's like, you know what, I didn't like it, but I had to hold my nose and do it because I didn't have a choice. It was one way or the other, and somebody was going to be unhappy. I agree, absolutely. I'm sure, and reasonable people could disagree. Unfortunately, that's where we're at. Does anybody else wish to be heard? Yes, sir.
Good evening, Jan Burton, 19 Depot Road, West Hampton Beach. I live on the west side more of Depot Road. I'm still affected by what happens on the east side of Depot Road. I listened to Jim Hume give a presentation about putting a 7-Eleven in on County Road 31. Assuming there would be no left-hand turns from that 7-Eleven. I'm sure there was a traffic study done, correct?
We actually had extensive discussions, and I personally brought that up, and I said, listen, I don't want to see traffic going out, because originally where they had the curb cut was it was going to be right up where the railroad was, and I said, that's a stupid design, and I said, it should be, and I think Ron agreed. We worked on that. They're not going to get a left turn. It's going to be a right turn only.
Okay. All right, great. The speed limit on County Road 31, as you know, is 40 miles an hour, and it's 30 miles an hour on Depot. The question that I have is really why not keep it on County Road 31 just because of the traffic study? What happened to the dunes at West Hampton Beach? Did you do a traffic study for that?
They didn't have an alternate access or egress point. They only had one point was to get up.
It works, doesn't it?
It's also a lot further up from the Montauk Highway.
And presumably nobody goes 40 miles an hour there either.
Sir? I appreciate what you're saying, I do.
Well, I'm just saying that you had a perfectly good plan to make to County Road 31. Now you're going to disrupt. I've been on Depot Road since 1985, all right? Okay, I lived through Patio Villas, that's no problem. All the people from Patio Villas walk their dog up and down Depot Road. You realize, somebody's gonna get killed on that road, because Ethan Thane is the retired quad cop, lives across the street from me. He and I would go out and sit on the road and watch people speed up and down that road, and it was just terrible. I don't know anybody who lives on Depot will corroborate that. I mean, I just don't understand why you didn't keep the county road based on this traffic study, which is Zooms at West Hampton Beach. I mean, you telling me they don't make left-hand turns? Of course they do. If you go out there right now, you can make a left-hand turn on County Road 31 without a moment's delay. It's only during the rush hours, as it is everywhere on the eastern end of Long Island.
Well, one of the goals generally of planning is to reduce contact points, and
Well, it's to reduce the potential for accidents.
and with the volume on admittedly, I mean, I think it's fair to say that the volume on Depot is less than the volume on 31. I don't think that anybody could reasonably dispute that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not against this
Right.
the houses. I think it's great. I mean, I lived out here. I moved out here in 1980. I mean, there's nobody out here. I prefer people, but it's just that the traffic situation on Depot is dangerous. This is serious.
I appreciate that, and unfortunately, with there being a lot of development in a very short period of time that we've been trying to deal with, and with a lot of people
Talking about 141 units.
who had a lot of people had seasonal homes, or who decided they wanted to get out of the city and live here full time. We're now dealing with a very large increase in a very short period of time. So the village as a whole is still trying to adapt to a lot of this.
I appreciate that.
So we're trying to manage. Really, it's really sort of like under the gun in some respects.
I know, but you can fix a potential dangerous situation by just agreeing to the first plan.
Well,
unfortunately, the dunes in West Hampton Beach work. Right. I mean, I just don't see what. And oh my God, how many cars are coming out of that place?
And I appreciate.
And it seems to work.
And I appreciate that.
In front of there.
And I appreciate that, but unfortunately, in terms of process, these were things that should have brought up before we did the preliminary.
Well, I got this notice yesterday, so.
Well, did you get the?
I didn't get anything till yesterday.
From the first.
I didn't know this existed till yesterday.
3 days ago.
I never got it.
Yesterday, I got a notice in my mailbox.
Never got a notice.
For the original. No, they sent it out, they did do it timely, they sent it out within 10 days.
Yeah, because I'm not 200 feet from the.
No.
As a councilor from the developer, I'm not 200 feet.
Let's.
Yes.
Okay, so they did do it timely, they submitted their affidavit of service. I can't speak for the post office. I will say, probably if I had to assume, like everything else in the world, it's backed up, but they did do their affidavit of service. Actually, I think I sent it to them earlier because of the Thanksgiving holiday. Julie secretary was out, we pushed her together.
I just wanted for the record.
But it was
we
done
mailed
timely.
early. We did mail early, and we mailed to everyone within 200 feet. I don't know if everyone was.
But the original, the preliminary subdivision, that was sent out.
It was the exact same list, we sent it out.
Yeah.
They
So
did it.
so when we did the preliminary subdivision review
On Zoom meetings, we had people from Patio Villas. On those Zoom meetings, I remember.
So they
were on.
So it was. It would have been during the. Hold on, please. It would have been during the preliminary subdivision review process that this was already decided. So unfortunately, we appreciate your comments, but that is done.
Well, why can't you undo it?
Because we already approved it.
I mean, unapprove it. What's the problem?
You do that.
Tell it to somebody whose dog gets run over from Patio Village while they're walking. With all due respect, I'm more than 200 feet away from this planned development, so I didn't get notified till yesterday, only through my neighbors.
Right, but the village code requires the applicant.
I'm sure it does.
You know what?
I'm not gonna. Hey,
Listen,
we gotta stop arguing.
if you want to have a larger swath of people be notified, that has to be done by somebody else. Yes, ma'am.
Linda, morning. I am across the street. We have 2 homes. I'm with Martin Weiss, his partner of 10 years. He's lived on the road for 40 years. I have combed all patio villas, gone up and down the road. I have 4 children playing on the road with many other children. We can rattle off all the stats. First of all, that you did review the traffic patterns. It was during COVID, which I think is a little bit of a, I don't know, I don't understand why. You can't say next year is going to be the same traffic pattern and the amount of traffic. We did get registered letters, I called you the other day, the lawyer, but only certain people within 200 feet, and every single resident on that street attached doesn't want the entrance there, at least have something. Maybe you could only make a right side turn, a right-hand turn out of Riverhead Road. With the new dwelling going over on Rogers, with the other, I hear there's another dwelling going that's gonna only exit onto Riverhead. You're gonna end up needing lights there. There's just no 2 ways about it. There's just so much buildup of residential homes that are gonna dump onto the road out there. I have people signed after people to sign all these papers saying, we didn't know about it. People got notified a week ago. A lot of people went back to the city. People didn't know about it. They contacted their neighbor. They didn't know that it was final. So if this was final, sir, Mr. Neubauer, whatever your name is, because you've repeated it. So if that was, why do I get another registered letter?
You should have had a registered letter when we were doing the preliminary. And the mailing did take place, so. I can't explain why you didn't get it.
Why did we get a registered letter a week ago for everyone within 200 feet? Now, only the north side of the patio got it. Every single person in Evelyn Court with children, everyone has been, there wasn't a forum for us to speak up. I personally missed it. I don't know, but.
People were on Zoom. We did have Zoom.
No, I know that, but all these people said there wasn't, why did we receive a registered letter last week to show up today if you're telling me it's a done deal?
It's a procedural thing. There's 2 steps to the subdivision. There's a preliminary.
So I've got hundreds of people on Depot Road just to figure out another situation so it doesn't all dump out. Let's be honest with, you took that paper, with 20, I forgot, how many proposed houses? 24?
22.
Okay. At 1.5 million apiece, can we all really seriously say it's only going to be 2 cars all the time? I mean, it's really not going to be that. It's just with the jitney, the amount of time the train comes in, the jitney's coming 14 times a day. That's not even the summer schedule. The Ambassador, I mean, it's crazy. Literally, Station Road was clipped, Ms. Valenti told me the other day, has been clipped so the jitney doesn't hit all the bushes, because now they're starting to go down Station. They'll come up and go down the other way. I mean, it's crazy.
Miss, no. No, you have to come up and talk, one at a time.
The senior citizens walking up and down, and not all the senior citizens, don't take it personally. Some are 60, some are 65. There's a lot of 80-year-olds. The only place they can do is walk on that road. And it's already crazy. I mean, some of the buses, and I've called Jeffrey Lynch at Hampton City, they are going 75 miles an hour. I mean, it is out of control, that road. And if any of you had lived on there, you'd get an idea. And there's plenty of people here that have lived on that road for a long time. And I'm not saying I'm happy for the development. I think it's great. I mean, we could use all year round in this town, especially with the restaurants and all the sales and, boost the economy. But to dump everything out on that road, which is your major transportation hub in West Hampton, is completely wrong. And I've got every single person on that street would please work with the developer. We're happy. I mean, I just don't want, some people are very angry. I'm just trying to pay the middleman. I mean, we just got notified about the final news application for the new exit, and people didn't know. No one knows. So, and we're talking about a lot of just the patio alone. You're talking about a lot of senior citizens live on the road, and they're not up on computer, Zoom, all that. But a lot of people did not know. I went door to door the past week, and I spoke to a lot of these people, and more people that couldn't come, or they're elderly and they just can't get out. And all they do for only exercise they have now, they don't go to community centers. Their only exercise is going up and down that road with their dogs.
Well, like
and
I said,
it's very sad, because there's got to be another solution. And don't tell me that Riverhead Road is never not going to have another light. That's impossible.
That's
Look
a,
how much stuff you proposed right now.
that's a
So
county,
much proposed.
understood, but that's a county road, so that's up to the county to decide. We don't have an input.
Oh, so that is all the county with lights, that whole county that's county road.
They're all county roads. County Road 31
So what
and
made you decide,
Montauk
so
Highway.
this is our, we're on the north side, so the south side, and I have, Leanne's, right next to it, Richie and Leanne, they didn't even get notified, they're literally next to the dwelling, that's the single home that's gonna exit onto the road, they live next to that driveway. They are the only home at 64, is it 64? But I mean, so you're saying the north side of the road is town of Southampton, you guys are the village, but you're saying the eastern side of this community is actually the county road?
County Road 31 is a county road. Montauk Highway is a county road.
Right,
They're under county jurisdiction, although they lie within the village. The roadways are under the jurisdiction of the county.
So the county left it up to you to decide though?
No, we had the
Subdivision.
Because I
The
still think that
subdivision,
your traffic, exam, or whatever, what exactly you call that, your traffic patch.
Study.
I mean, it's COVID. I mean, it's just, I mean,
That
that
was-
road
was-
is out
that
of
was
control.
That was accounted for in the study as, because it was a big issue in the Rogers Avenue traffic study, and they adjusted for that.
I can't imagine that Rogers Road, once that is up and going, that there's no way they're not gonna put a light there either. There's just, it's impossible, there's too many people.
Not enough traffic.
What, with that new facility of
On
Rogers?
the
Road,
side-
how many
no.
trucks
On
is
the
it?
side road, I'm telling you, there's not gonna be traffic like that.
I'm sorry,